Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Jim Remley, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. Appreciate you being here, bud.
Hey, my pleasure to be with you. I'm honored to be on the program.
So like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we'd like to start with where you were born, go all the way up to today. And then we want to talk about eReal Estate Coach. Yeah. We want to talk about all the amazing things you're doing to help realtors and brokers in particular take their business to the next level. I read some of your testimonials and they are amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. So I'm super honored to be on with you. So tell us where you were born.
I was born in Long Beach, California.
So cool. Not far from here.
1869.
There you go.
This is my year to turn 55. My wife's given me a lot of hard times about that. So she's ready to take me to get my, my Elmer's senior menu.
I love that, dude. That's awesome. I've been a senior citizen now for almost 3 years. So welcome to the club. This is cool.
Thank you. So, but my parents were hippies and they moved to Oregon when I was about 4 years old. So
that's cool.
I've been in Oregon my whole life.
So where in Oregon did they move to?
Well, they moved to a little town called Roseburg, Oregon, which is kind of dead center in the state.
Okay.
Lumber capital of the world is what it's famous for.
There you go.
When I barely graduated high school and I made it out, I dropped out of college and went to work at one of those lumber mills, pulling what's called a green chain. So a green chain is where they take a big log and they have a huge saw and they cut the log into lumber, and then it comes down a chain and you literally are pulling it off the chain by its size and what it looks like. So that was my job. I worked the graveyard shift doing that. But a buddy of mine talked me into get my real estate license, and that's kind of how I got into real estate. So I was 19 when I got my real estate license.
Wow. So hold on just a second. So I didn't know there was graveyard shift in the lumber business. So you're working in a mill.
Yeah.
Right. And you're sorting lumber as it comes down the assembly line, so to speak, or down the line, so to speak.
Yeah. Young man's job.
Wow. That's wild. So let's go back for a second. So growing up in Roseburg, Oregon.
Yeah.
What was your favorite thing about growing up there?
I still love a small town. It's funny. My wife and I just drove through a small town. I love a small town. I'm a sucker for it. I like just where everybody knows who you are, and you just, everybody shakes hands, everybody's a little bit more friendly, and there's just more of a community feeling to it. It's funny, I own real estate still to this day in that town, and my wife and I we went back there recently, and I own an RV park there. So this is a crazy story. So I own this RV park. I have a breakdown with one of my pieces of equipment. I go to take it in, my big tractor. I pull in, and this guy looks at me, he says, "Is your name Jim Remley?" I go, "Yeah, it is." He said, "We went to high school together about 40 years ago."
Right.
I go, "Oh my God." Small town, right?
Yeah.
The next day I had to go rent a big excavator, go there. I ran into another guy that I went to high school. That's just the small town thing,
Wow, that is so cool.
I love that. I mean, it just makes, that's what I like about a small town.
So we're currently taping on July 9th, and on July 27th, so 27th of this month, I have my 40th high school reunion.
Nice.
So we're totally looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And a lot of it, there are people coming in from all over the country to come be a part of it. So we're super excited to see them. That's awesome, man. Yeah. So you go to high school in Roseburg, right?
Yep.
Did you have a favorite subject?
I liked English. I liked writing. I was always fancied myself a writer, and that's something I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Eventually I was fortunate enough to write a couple books. But I was a terrible student. I was a C at best student. I started working when I was 15. My first business was a window cleaning business called Wind Clear Window Cleaning. So I went around to all businesses and knocked on their doors and got a little accounts, with all these businesses, charged them $20 and would wash the windows. And then I worked for as a dishwasher. I worked at Safeway, had 3 jobs in high school. Wow. Coincidentally, at Safeway, in my senior year, I worked graveyard shift there too. So, yeah. And then I get up, and I didn't get up. I just go to school after that. So I slept through all my classes.
Wow. So you got the rest you needed while school was happening.
While school was happening around me.
I got you. See, I can't do that because I snore sitting up. Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I actually worked for the local grocery store too, and worked graveyard for them. Seemed like all I did was work and sleep. It was crazy. Yeah. So I don't know how in the world you did it and went to high school. Obviously, you'd have to sleep during high school, right? During the classes.
Right. Yeah.
So growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
Growing up, it was probably the people that I worked with, because I worked from 15 on, I was working. So the people that I would always look up to, my managers, and I would think, how did they become the manager? What makes them so special that they're managing me? And they're always, looking back on it, these guys were in their early 20s, but they seemed right. And I was always impressed by their leadership, and I had some really good managers. One of my first jobs working as a dishwasher in a Chinese restaurant, I worked for this guy named Henry Yi. Mm-hmm. Henry had immigrated from China, could barely speak English, and I couldn't understand a word he said when I first went to work for him. Mm-hmm. But he had worked so hard his whole life to get to this point where he could own a little Chinese restaurant in Roseburg, Oregon, the middle of nowhere. Very successful restaurant. But I got to be such good, and he was a hard worker. But I got to be so close to him that I could then become to understand him. So I became his translator. Waiters would come in and I'd translate. New waitresses would come in, I'd translate for him. But here's the crazy story about Henry, just as a side note. Talk about entrepreneurial. Henry, I worked there for years, and then I moved on. I got my real estate license. Henry became one of my clients. He bought and sold houses with me. But Henry, at 75 years old, sells his restaurant. And this is back when video stores were becoming a thing. He creates a new chain of video stores.
Wow.
In the local city, it's 5 video stores in the county. Yeah. He's the dominant player in the video market back then. So it's just an interesting story about entrepreneurism. And this guy's never stopped working.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How cool.
Great lesson for me.
Absolutely. So you graduate high school.
Yeah.
Where do you go?
Graduate high school. I don't go far. I married my high school sweetheart, and I got a job working in the lumber mill. But I knew that, I never forget my first night coming off that shift working graveyard, and I came down, and there was a log pond right in front of the mill. And, in the morning, the log pond would kind of be misting, as it will. And I come off this log pond, and coming through the mist are all these guys coming on the day shift. And they're all wearing jackets. They're wearing these brown jackets. I can never forget it. And around the jackets, they had an armband. And the armband said how long they had been with the company, the tenure. So it'd say 25 years with the company, 35, 40. Some of them had 40-year armbands. And I thought to myself, am I going to be working here 25 years from now, 35 years from now? I mean, these are great guys. There's nothing wrong with hard work. They make America run. But it just, for me personally, I thought, I've got to find something else to do with my life that's going to fulfill me as an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I knew then I got to make a change. What that change was, I didn't know, but it happened to be real estate.
Sort of shocked you awake, huh?
Yeah, I was like, what am I doing?
Okay, so talk about the real estate thing for a second. So at some point, somebody talked you into getting your real estate license. Talk about that for a second.
So I had a buddy of mine that his dad was a very successful real estate broker, but he had a little tiny company, and his name, it was Sam Scardy, and his real estate company is called Alcan Real Estate. So we should get a real estate license. So I went ahead and finished real estate. He didn't, for whatever reason, finish. And so I went on to get my real estate license. I didn't actually go to work for Sam. I actually ended up going to work for the first company I drove by after I got my license. I just pulled in and said, "Hey, you guys hiring?" And of course, not knowing any better, they said, "Yeah, we're hiring. Come on in." Yeah. So I thought, well, that was easy. I got my first job. Yeah. So I went to work at Century 21. I was a Century 21 agent. I wore the gold coat proudly.
That's awesome. So how long were you with Century 21?
I was with C21 for 5 years. I was a little bit of a failure in the beginning. The first 6 months was a big struggle for me because I was 19. I looked young, and I was like, nobody's entrusting their their largest asset to me. My friends are
Right.
out at keggers; they're not buying real estate from me. So it was a little bit of a struggle. I quickly figured out what I needed to do, and I got past that. In my second year in the business, I got listed in the top 1% of agents in the nation. Took 150 listings, and then did that for 5 years, and then I opened my first company at 24.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the thing that you figured out you needed to do?
Well, there's first of all, there's three things I figured out. I could not rely on back then floor time. I couldn't rely on the phone ringing to drive my business because the people that were sitting around me in that office back then it was a smoking offices, literally a cloud of smoke when you'd walk in. And I just like these people are just sitting here waiting for somebody to the phone to ring. They're waiting for somebody to walk to the front door. I gotta be an outbound salesperson if I'm gonna be successful as a realtor. So then I started reading all the books and going into all the live seminars. There was no webinars back then, and really immersing myself in what are the top agents in America doing, and what can I do to model them and just start doing exactly what they're doing. So I did that, and that really worked for me. So I think the first step was modeling top performance behavior was it, and just identifying one thing I could do that would create success.
And what was that one thing?
So for me, it's three things really. I mastered for sale by owner, so I was an absolute dominant in the for sale by owner market in my area. So I listed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of for sale by owners in my career. I then moved into expired listings, and I became dominant in expired listings and absentee owners. So because I had zero sphere of influence that were buying or selling homes, I mean, I had friends and family, but they were not ready to start buying houses. I had to build my own sphere of influence from absolute scratch.
Right.
So that's how I did it.
So talk about FSBOs for a second. What was the absolute key to success in FSBOs?
So with FSBOs, it's a little bit different than it was then than it is now. I'll tell you the differences, but the universal truth about for sale by owners is this: that 92% of them are going to list their house with somebody.
Yep,
Doesn't
that's
matter
true.
who it's going to be with, you or somebody else.
That's right. Yeah.
Only 10 of them are going to be with a realtor. And then the other truth behind them is that they generally have an incubation period of 4 to 6 weeks. So from the time they put a sign on themselves, do a little bit of marketing, to the time that they pull the trigger with the realtor, it's 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
So you start, if an agent's listening to this and they start this, they got to say, okay, I got to let go of outcome and not expect any outcome until 4 to 6 weeks. So that was the first thing, is I let go of outcome, and I said, I'm just going to work. I'm going to do my job every day. And then you had to figure out, how do I get into their houses, right? To start the relationship. It's all about relationship building. So the script that I developed and with just modeling other great performers ahead of me was this: a very simple script. I'd say, hey, this is Jim Remley with ABC Real Estate. Hey, listen, I'm not calling to list your house. First of all, I respect your decision to sell on your own. So now the defenses have come down. But I do have a quick question. I'm working with a couple buyers that might be a good fit for your house. My office is also working with a few buyers that might be a good fit for your house. Would you be okay with me coming by and taking a 10-minute quick walkthrough? Maybe if you let me, I can take a couple pictures. That way I can show them to my potential buyers, see if it's a good match. If it's not, cool. But would you be open to that? Now, we could go all the way through early minor objections and all that stuff. But about 8 out of 10 of the times, I would, with the right phraseology, you can get in the door. And once I got in the door, I had a whole process behind that, which was pretty simple. But at the end of the day, it's about relationship building, taking notes about the house, asking great questions, building relationships. And at the end of the tour, the end of me taking the notes, I'd say, hey, listen, I promised I wasn't going to ask you for a listing, and I'm not. But I do have a quick question for you. They'd say, what is it? I'd say, my question is, what's your plan if you're not successful selling? Do you think at any point you might hire a realtor? And they might, most of the time they say, yeah, we probably would at some point. Well, do you think that on the timing factor, would that be like 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, 20 years? And I'd laugh. And part of this is having fun with people. I'd say, yeah, it's going to be like maybe 3 or 4 months. Totally get it. Hey, do you mind if I do this? Every week, if you don't mind, I'd just like to give you a quick call and make sure the house is still available. By the way, since I've already been here, I could probably give you a few things that could be really helpful. And then I offer them a CMA, talk about their strongest competitor, offer to do a flyer for them. I even have a for sale by owner kit where I created signs for sale by owner signs that had my little logo in the corner. There's a whole strategy behind that. And then it was just a matter of the waiting game. 6 to 8 weeks, 9 out of 10 of them would call me and list the house. And
did you host any open houses for them?
Nobody had told me that strategy.
Okay, it's okay.
I didn't think about that strategy, and it didn't even cross my mind to do that. So no, I did not.
Yeah.
No.
So the reason I'm asking is I've worked obviously FSBOs before, right? I've been doing this for 32 years,
Yeah.
and FSBOs were a real strong point for me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that absolutely pushed them over the top was I would ask them, so let me ask you a question. How many open houses have you had? Well, none. Okay. Let me ask you, what's standing in your way? Right. And they would say something along the lines of, I don't really want just complete strangers and nosy neighbors and all these people coming through my house.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sit here for 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is. Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. Would you be okay if I did it? Would you be okay if I hosted your home open? You guys go do something, enjoy yourself, have a good day somewhere, and we just take care of it. What do you think? Because we can pre-qualify your buyers, we can, right?
Mhm.
Well, actually, right? And usually what would happen is they would say, yeah, that would be great. I'm still not listing with you, right? Because they're still, they got the rope-a-dope thing going, right?
Yeah.
Bless their heart, right? But it would be, oh, well, yeah, right? And all of a sudden, and sometimes it was, let me think about it. And about 3 minutes later, they'd call me and I'm in my car and they're like, hey, we thought about it. We want you to do it, So it was always for me a way to, and by the way, I picked up listings from it. I picked up buyers from it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy.
Great.
Nowadays, obviously, it's a whole different approach. But back then, it was something that, holding that open house really built a relationship with them because it gave them an opportunity to see what my work ethic was like.
Yeah.
And gave me an opportunity to contribute. You know what I mean?
I love it.
So anyway, sorry about that.
No,
So
a couple of things that we're doing now that's a little bit different with technology is when I'm coaching people is at some point, and it happens to all of us, when your business starts to kind of take off, you're like, do I really have time to continue going after for self-banners, which we still do.
Right.
You offload this work to an assistant and you can just shoot a video of yourself basically saying the same script. And then your assistant has this stored on their phone and they just shoot that video text to the potential for self-banner to set that appointment. And that's been very successful. And we call that cold texting. And that's been really a good one. Now I'll tell you another script that's worked for us too, more recently. And I picked it up from another top producer and it's absolutely crushing is they'll say, hey, quick question for you. Not calling to ask you for your listing, respect your decisions on your own. Would you mind if I do a quick video of your property? And by the way, I'll give you the copy of the video when I'm done. But I've got a lot of out-of-state folks. I'd love to shoot it to them, see if they have any interest in it. And you'll get a free copy of it. And most people are like, yeah, that'd be cool. So that's another kind of along the lines of the open house, doing something that they're not doing. I think that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good job, man.
Yeah.
So the next thing after FSBOs was you worked expireds.
Yeah.
What do you feel like was the key to working expireds?
Well, with expireds, I learned something. I taught an ABR class for the National Association of REALTORS in Portland, Oregon. And a guy went there and his name was Brian Belair's. I don't know if Brian's still operating, but great guy then. And he was number 3 in Portland at that time. And I said, Brian, what's your number 1 strategy for getting business? And he said, open houses. And I was like, this does relate to expireds, by the way. And I said, open houses. That's like, what are you talking about? Yeah. And he had a whole strategy for open houses. But one of his strategies for open houses was that he would canvass all the expired listings and for self-banners for that matter, but all the expired listings around the open house he's doing every time he do one. And he's doing one every weekend. And for Brian, he would generally do 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. So he's actually doing 4 open houses.
Wow. God, so dude's a machine.
Yeah, he's a machine number, but again, this is his whole strategy. That's all he does. So with the expireds, he would simply call and say, hey, Brian Belair's or Jim Remley with ABC Real Estate, doing an open house on one of your neighbors' houses this weekend. Did some research. I noticed you were on the market last June. I got a quick crazy question. If I run into a buyer at my open house that doesn't fit the house I'm having open, but they love the neighborhood, would you be open to selling your house at this point? I mean, would you be open to that? And he get a great response to that. So I modeled that. It's like, that's a great idea. And
that's a great idea. Yeah.
Really, that was very successful. Another strategy, which is kind of outside the box, because everybody has the same strategy. Like, are you interviewing agents for the job? You're selling your home, that kind of thing, which is fine. But, it's just like they get 100 calls like that. Yeah. Another strategy, which is, it's all about your guidometer, how gutsy you are on the phone, and what are you willing to ask. So my question would be, hey, Mike, I noticed your house has been delisted in MLS this morning. I just got a quick, crazy question for you. I saw you were listed at 440. Would you accept an offer, a cash offer for 400,000? And you'd either be like, hell no, or well, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you
At this point, right?
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, the reason I ask is I've worked with a lot of buyers. My company's worked with a lot of buyers. I feel like looking at your property, did you have a lot of activity? And you probably say not enough. Obviously didn't get an offer and get it sold. I think what happened, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but do you feel like that home was priced right? Because I feel like it was maybe a little bit over the mark. And if we can get that price right, I think we can get it sold. Would you be open to talking to me for 10 minutes? And that would be kind of my approach. So, and that was, again, very successful for me, but it's all goodometer stuff, right? What do you got?
Yeah.
What do you have enough guts to say?
Yeah, I love it, man. That's awesome.
I also had a 17-point home scoring sheet, which was another strategy. And I'd say, hey, you're probably not ready to come back on the market, right? And let them say no, because they're like, all of them want to say no to you. So if you give them the no, they love it. So Mike, you're probably not ready to come back on the market. I'm sure it's a frustrating experience, right? And they say, no, I'm not coming back on the market. Totally get it. Let me ask you though, would you like to know why the home didn't sell? And let me tell you what I have. I got a 17-point home scoring sheet. And every listing that I've taken, hundreds of listings over the last 10 years, every single listing that scores an A sells 100% of the time. If you score a B, you have an 85% chance of selling. If you score a C or less, it's a 15% chance of selling. So we'll know exactly, if you just fill this thing out with me, you'll know exactly what went wrong the first time. And the next time you come on back on the market, whether it's 6 months, 2 years, or 5 years from now, you'll know what not to do. Would you be curious to see that? And they'll say, yeah, we can even do a virtual meeting. I don't even have to come to your house. We can just hop on Zoom and we can just walk through it really quickly. You're going to know exactly what's going on. People love that too.
Yeah. Well, it's the void, right?
Yeah.
Like the one thing that when I worked expires, the one thing I always heard was the agent that took my listing that I expired with took my listing and I never heard from him again.
Right. Communication.
They never did another thing. They never called me. I never heard from him. Couldn't get him to call me back, the whole thing. Right.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing with expireds that, I always had testimonials ready for them that, Mike was always in touch with me. I talked to him 4 or 5 times a week, that kind of thing. Even when there was no update. Right. So yeah, it's just, it depends upon what their hot button is, but a lot of times back in the day with an expired, it was, they listed it, never heard from them again, So that's awesome, man. I love that. That 17-point thing is cool. Yeah. And it just helps them with the void. It helps them figure out, what it is they're missing.
And I think you're hitting it right on the head with communication. Something I learned from somebody else in my career is I started using a communication guarantee because of exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So we would have a communication guarantee, and I'd say, it sounds like you weren't happy with communication.
Yeah.
So I have a communication guarantee. And here's what it means. It means you can fire me at any time if I don't call you back within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Or you can short it into 4 hours or 8 hours or whatever the numbers you're comfortable with.
Right.
And that way you're in complete control. I have to live to that standard. So feel about that. And a lot of times I'll make them feel better.
Yeah. And what it does is it also reduces their feeling of risk, right? Because they just had one they were locked into for 6 months or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden they got all kinds of trepidation about, you know what I mean? Like it's, guaranteed offer, flexible commissions, right? You can cancel anytime. That kind of stuff helps them sort of dial it down in terms of anxiety.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. So the third thing, so you did FSBOs, expireds, and there was one other one. What was the third thing?
Absentee owners.
Okay. And and absentee owners were important because you didn't really have a database. You didn't have a presence there, right? Where you had like this network of people feeding you leads. Right. So talk about absentee owners for a second. What was the single most important thing that you used to succeed with them?
Well, a couple of things. Absentee owners, first of all, here's why I chose absentee owners was that I was so young. I wouldn't have to meet these people.
Right.
In person, it's all a voice over the phone of that. So it was an advantage for me at that point. But here's the number one trick with absentee owners, not trick, but the absentee owners is you start with the buyer.
Yeah.
So you first have to have a buyer. So for anybody listening, there's a million buyers out there. There's always buyers. So whether it's an investor, somebody that's willing to buy for wholesale, whatever, you have a buyer. In my case, living in the timber capital of the world, which was Roseburg, Oregon, I had a timber buyer. So I had somebody who was willing to buy timber. I then, this was decades before buyer agency, buyer representation. I had him sign a buyer representation agreement, which I created, which said, Jim, if you find me a timber property that fits this box, what I want to purchase, I will pay you 10% commission plus a 3% bonus. I get 13% on any deal that he ended up closing escrow on. So now, I'm not saying that you get that today from buyers, but having the buyer in place is essential so that when you go out to start doing these absentee owner mailings, that they know that there's a reason for you making contact. It's not just trying to get a list of.
Right.
You have a buyer, you have a potential to make a deal happen immediately. So then we got in the process of sending mailing. So I would do 8,000 pieces of mail a month. And that 8,000 pieces, people say, was it a postcard? Never use a postcard.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.